Class 168 on the Golden Doves, we're page 95. Accordingly, the study of halakha, formal rabbinic education, comprised three distinct levels. So now that we know what halakha is, and halakha was the formal education of the hachamim in the yeshivot, now we're going to do the three different levels of study. The most elementary was Girsa, memorization of the text. So, of course, the most fundamental thing is to actually memorize the words, right? Since halakha is a string of words that has a particular order, that's composed in a particular order. For that purpose, I'm just looking for the footnote. Give me a moment. So you need to memorize the words. Let's go to footnote 58. In Arabic, this term means to plant. Interesting. So the word girsa in Arabic means to plant. To fix permanently, right? So I want to affix something permanently. That's girsa. In rabbinic idiom, girsa also includes the traditional melody with which the text was chanted. So girsa also, because the text that you were gores, that you would study by heart, that you would say by heart, there was a particular melody that was used. So the word girsa also refers to that melody. All right. On the relation of girsa to halakha, so you get it also applies to the shema'ata lesson offered by the rabbis to the student, because the shema'ata is a formal lesson in the yeshiva that the Rosh Yeshiva would give to the Talmidim, and then it would be gorsim the shema'ata. Okay, it seems, all right. It seems that Rameh Bar Hamma did not consider knowledge of shema'ata at the Girsa level to be meaningful. He just thought, so if all you do is you know the words, and you don't know what the words mean, so if all you're doing is the first level, the words, Girsa, so Rameh Bar Hamma was apparently not impressed by a person who all he does is gores. Back to the main text. Girsa involved arduous and perpetual exercise. Right? It was mental exercise. Students and teachers were fully absorbed by it. As some were even overcome by this task and had to engage in a more relaxing activity until regaining their strength. Because really, Girsa, for those of you who studied Be'al Peh, you would know that it is mentally exhausting to study things Be'al Peh, right? I'm sorry while I adjust the light here. Well, let's see if I can do this in a way where, okay. Sorry about that, man. This is not coming out good. But continuing nevertheless. All right. Some were even overcome by this task and had to engage in a more relaxing activity until regaining their strength. It was common to find some students sleeping to regain their strength while others were engaged in Girsa. Very interesting, right? To facilitate this task, some advise the students to engage in Girsa by a river. Why a river? But I'm looking at the footnote now, quoting an article, Learning and Teaching in the Open Air in Palestine, Outdoor Teaching in Talmudic Times. Okay, fine. So that's it for the footnotes. I think we're not going to have any more footnotes for this class. But they used to study by the river, and maybe the sound of the water was soothing and relaxing. They studied Girsa in their gardens, under a palm tree, in their homes, synagogues, and schools. Although one could study Girsa alone, it was usually done in association with others, because when you study things Be'al Peh, you need to have one person saying it and another person testing him. And it makes it much easier, because, if you constantly have to look, wait, did I get this right? Oh, no, I didn't get it right. We have somebody testing you, and then you're reciting before that individual. The individual catches you. And also, when you're both studying the same text, reciting it together, having done this myself, it reinforces knowledge of the text. The reason given by the rabbis was to avoid the possibility of error. And now this is a quote from Berachot 63. Okay, quote is as follows: when two sit and engage in the study of Torah, if one of them makes an error in the recitation of a halacha or of a chapter, or in saying pure instead of impure, or impure instead of pure, or in saying permissible instead of forbidden, or forbidden instead of permissible, his companion would correct him. Yes. End of quote. Night was considered an excellent time for study. It was advised to engage in Girsa at night, particularly when the moon was out, and to take advantage of the light for an occasional glance at the text. There was no electricity back then. Nighttime is good because there is less disruption because everybody's sleeping. Because there's no electricity, everybody's asleep, so you can really focus your mind. On the other end, if the moon is out, then you can really use the moonlight to look at the text. Because rabbinic students got up before dawn for Girsa, it was not uncommon to see them drowse during the morning, right? So they would wake up very early before tefillah, do Girsa, then go to tefillah shachlit, and they would be sleeping during tefillah shachlit or dozing off. We are told that if one were to enter a tavern by the 4th hour of the morning and see a rabbinic student drowsing while drinking wine, this is because he had arisen early for his Girsa, right? So he's woke up early, he put in, an hour or two of studying Ba'al Peh, and then he prayed Shachlit, and now he's tired, so before he goes to bed, he's going to a tavern to have a drink. Lehavdil, and then Kodesh Lechol Ben Yisrael Amim. We have a drink because we studied a lot of Torah and we just want to relax. And the highest virtue was to perpetually engage in Girsa. Neither the angel of death nor the evil impulse can touch a person engaged in Girsa, for the reason that when you're engaged in Girsa, your mind is operating in a way where there is no possibility of Yetzer Hara at that moment. Unless you stop the Girsa and that you reorient your mind to its regular mode, then yes. But while you're engaged in Girsa, no. That's why David HaMelech, he knew that he was going to die on Shabbat, and on Shabbat all he would do was Girsa, because then the Malach HaMavet would not be able to touch him. Special commercial privileges were accorded to young rabbinic scholars in order that they should not be disturbed from their Girsa. So we want to give them special privileges. So in this way, we encourage the Hachamim, the Talmidei Hachamim, or the Sulba de Rabbanan to study. This level of study did not involve understanding of the text. Again, Girsa was only the first level, so it's just learning the text. It was important, however, to say the text out loud in order to facilitate memorization and to recite it according to traditional Jewish prosody, the ta'amim. So there was a particular melody through which you would recite the text, right? So, for example, chapter 2 of Masechet Zevachim, Kol HaZevachim Shekibel Daman, Zar, Onen, Tebul Yom. So, by saying the particular melody, it helps in the recitation of the text. So there wasn't this melody. For those of you who know a little, Hazanut was in Makam Nawa, right? So that's a traditional process. And actually, my father said the ancient texts, some of them had ta'amim. So maybe according to the ta'amim, you would change the melody accordingly. Obviously, not all who mastered Girsa would advance to the next level. There were those whose sole concern was Girsa, enough understanding of the text. That was their job. Some rabbis were disturbed by this and complained about these generations that proceed in their studies of Torah as blind. All read, but they do not know what they read. All recite Mishnah, but do not know what they recite. Right? So I see there's a very long footnote here. Let me just finish the paragraph, and then I'll read the footnotes. The professional Tana, right? So the Tana, the professional Tana, as opposed to the age of the Tanaim, which is one thing, that's before the Benu HaKadosh, right? But then there was a professional Tana, even in the days of the Emoraim, whose job was to recite. So the professional Tana memorized 4 collections of oral law, Hilcheta, which is the Mishnah, Sifra, Sifre, and Tosefta. Okay, now before we said that Rabbi, and I may have skipped this sentence, Rabbi Isaac Profiat Duran reports copies of the Mishnah with cantillation marks. Yes, I skipped that sentence. Let's look at the footnote. Ma'aseh Efod. The Talmud Kiddushin, printed in Sabioneta, contains te'amim. Very interesting. In the Mishnah, that's fantastic. For a description, see Rabinowitz. Okay. Likewise, many Geniza fragments of the Mishnah and Talmud contain cantillation marks. Very interesting. This tradition was preserved by some Sephardic and Oriental communities until our own day. The proper cantillation of the Mishnah and the Talmud was entrusted to the memory of the young students, right? Okay, let's do, for example, Perek Aleph of Masechet Zevachim. Kol hazevachim shenizbehu shelo lishman kesherim ella shelo alu leba'alim leshem chova. Right, so there's a particular melody that they used to chant it in. Chanting the Mishnah helped to establish its traditional sense, as in what I designate elliptical Mishnah. Interesting. So what is an elliptical Mishnah? Let's see. Consider, for example, Mishnah Pesachim 2, chapter 2, Halacha Aleph, and the controversy, Pesachim 28b. So we have the Mishnah, and on the Mishnah, the Gemara has a particular machloket. So let's take a look at this. As is apparent from the Rif, this Mishnah is elliptical. It ought to be read, Mefarer vezoreh laruach umetil hayam. So let's take a look at this now. I'm opening up the Mishnah now. And I'm a little embarrassed that I don't know it Be'al Peh. Mefarer vezoreh laruach umetil hayam. That's Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, I believe. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mefarer vezoreh laruach umetil hayam. And the question is, when it says matil hayam, is that elliptical? So I'm just going to read to you the Mishnah now. Here it is. Okay. Yeah. And it's Hachamim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and biur chametz el haserefa. So Rabbi Yehuda says the way to destroy the chametz before the time of the Isur of Chametz on Yod Daled of Nisan, the only way to do it is serefa. V'hachamim omrim af mefarer vezoreh laruach, or alternatively, according to Hachamim, you can crumble the bread and throw it to the wind. Again, you crumble and you throw it. You crumble the bread and you throw it to the wind. Or you deposit the bread or the chametz into the ocean. So then the question is, when it says omatilayam, does it mean you crumble and you deposit it in the ocean, right? In which case, af mefarer would be elliptical. Or does it mean, no, you have two options. One option is to crumble the bread and throw it into the wind. And the second option is, or you just throw it into the ocean. But if you follow the second option, you don't need to crumble it. So that's what the Gemara discusses in Masechet Pesachim. As is apparent from the Rif, this Mishnah is elliptical. It ought to be read mefarer vezoreh laruach umetil hayam. So that mefarer applies to the two clauses of the sentence rather than mefarer vezoreh laruach umetil hayam. Meaning, let me show you how it would be read. If you follow the perush of the Rif, it would be v'hachamim omrim af mefarer vezoreh laruach umetil hayam. Whereas if you follow the Pshita that says it's not elliptical, it would be af mefarer vezoreh laruach umetil hayam. Right, a very subtle change in the melody, but it changes the meaning. Right. Most likely, the Tosefta was also chanted. The end of each paragraph of the Tosefta was probably signaled by a long concluding chant, as is customary with the Mishnah. So going back to the Mishnah of Masechet Zevachim, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph. So there it Amar Rabbi Eliezer HaChatat Ba'a Al Chayet Ha'asham Ba'a Al Chayet Ma Hatat Pesula Shelo Lishma Afa Asham Pasul Shelo Lishmo. So you see the ending of the Mishnah has a particular melody, right? Now going back to the footnote in the Golden Doves. Occasionally, the meaning of a passage or term can be affected by whether it was recited as the end of one paragraph or as the beginning of the next. For example, the controversy between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, the question concerning the position of Rabbi Yehuda in Cholin. In these cases, the official Tanaim could be consulted in order to establish whether Gabeh Hadadeh Tanya or these. So you would go to the professional Tana, whose job is to remember things by heart, and you would ask him, were these two paragraphs connected? Gabeh Hadadeh Tanya, are these passages recited together as a single paragraph? And you would know based on how he would end it, because if it was the ending of a paragraph, you would have that special melody. For the dispute concerning the Tosefta Bava Mesias 3. See Bava Mesias. Okay. Conversely, I'm going to end the class here because I have a call.